Hey fellow tennis nerds, I hope all is well. I wanted to talk a bit about Stefanos Tsitsipas and his string setup. It's been changing a bit in recent times and I wanted to get into why and kind of the benefits and the downsides with the different changes he's done. He is now in the fourth round of the Australian Open after beating Benoit Paire today in a 4-set match. He's perhaps not playing his best tennis, but he's getting through and he's getting, I think, increasingly dangerous as the tournament progresses. But Tsitsipas, if you don't know, he's using a Blade Pro stock, something that looks like this, but it's not the latest version. I think it's the one from 2013, but a Pro stock version of that, meaning that it has his specs, of course, definitely heavier than what you would find from the retail version. But if you want something similar to what he uses, the Blade, kind of any generation, but I really like the Blade version 8 is the one you should look at. And it's a great playing frame. He uses an 18-20 string pattern, so a little bit more controlled than the 16-19 that I'm holding here. And what he's using right now is a hybrid setup. So he's using two different strings, one in the mains, one in the crosses, to get kind of the benefits of both strings. It's a pretty good way to get a bit of a softer feel but retain some of the benefits of a polyester string. So getting more spin and more control, which polyester strings do give you because they're stiffer and they move back into place, called snapback. So before he always used to use a string called Luxilon 4G. And if you don't know, Luxilon 4G is one of the stiffest strings on the market, super controlled, excellent tension maintenance, but quite high stiffness. Generally, the stiffer the string, the less tension loss you will see. And if you have a really soft string, the durability will be less good, but it will be better on the arm overall, and you will get a bit more free power from the string, free depth on your shots. But pro players generally use stiffer polyester strings, sometimes paired with a natural gut or another polyester string, just to get that, you know, a softer feel from the string. Tsitsipas had elbow problems. He actually had surgery a while back, and I think the team started looking at ways to reduce the stiffness from his setup. He's using a pretty tight string pattern, 98 square inches, 18-20, and he used Luxilon 4G 1.25 gauge at 53 pounds or 24 kilos. Obviously, depending on the conditions, he might change that tension a little bit. That's what all pros tend to do. They tend to shift a bit if it's very humid and the ball is going to fly a lot. They might go up in tension if it's very cold and the ball is going to be quite dead and not move so fast. They might reduce tension. So that's a way to kind of, modify your setup to the conditions, which they all seem to do. And it's generally a good idea if you can to do that too. And after his surgery, he decided to go for a softer string setup. He used All Power 1.25 gauge, the kind of legend in the string game, an iconic string used by so many pro players, Murray, Federer, Novak, to name three pretty good players. And he used it with natural gut in the crosses. And he did seem quite frustrated with this string setup. It's a very common string setup. Obviously, you can tweak it. You can use All Power Rough. You can use another string, of course. But natural gut seems to be what the most pro players use because excellent tension maintenance, great feel, some power from the string. Still a very good string, natural gut. But he couldn't really get into this string. It seemed like you saw him at the ATP Cup. He seemed frustrated. He didn't find the control he was looking for. And a full bed of 4G is ultra controlled. You're going to get excellent control, but it's going to be stiff. That might have had an impact on his elbow problems coming down the line. He tried All Power, natural gut, didn't quite like it, and now at the Australian Open he seems to be testing 4G in the mains. So when you put a string in the mains, you're going to get that main flavor from that string. So if you want control from your racket but you want a softer feel, you put the polyester, giving it to control in the mains, and you put the softer string in the crosses. If you want more power from your setup and you're trying a hybrid, you can put the natural gut, for example, or the softer string in the main. So the main string will give most flavor to the racket setup, and then the cross string, secondary flavor. That's a way to put it. So he is now putting 4G in the mains to make sure he gets control, but he tries a softer setup, a little bit more power with natural gut in the crosses. I don't know his current tension. I guess it's still around what he was used to playing, around 55, 53 pounds overall. So I think that's where he is, but I don't know for sure. For example, Novak strings his hybrid setup with Allo Power very high, so around 27, 28 kilos, which is around 60 pounds. So he wants more control. Novak has a smaller head size as well than Tsitsipas. If you want to know more about the pro player setups, you can check out my other posts on tennisnerd.net or my other videos on this channel. There's a playlist, pro player rackets, you can check that one out. So he's now testing this one. I don't know if he's super happy with it, if he feels confident. Sometimes he looks at his racket like he doubts it. Many of these things are mental, so pro players, they get really, really used to a setup. They start doubting everything that feels slightly different. So if he's playing badly, it might not be the string at all, but he's going to blame the string. I mean, we all do that, I think, from time to time, but the pro players, they're so used to a certain thing. They need to play their best tennis. So much is on the line for them. So I think they are more prone to question if they're testing, for example, experimenting with a string. So we'll see. Maybe he goes back to a full bed of 4G, or he keeps going with 4G and natural gut in his setup. So that's Tsitsipas setup, some of the reasoning behind it. He's trying to find a softer setup, but retain the controlled feel he got from his full bed of 4G without the stiffness. So that's his aim. We'll see where he ends up. We do know that some pros experiment a bit with strings. I remember Thiem was testing a bunch of different strings when he had this nice run with the Indian Wells win and so on. It's easier for the pros to experiment with strings than to try new rackets. A racket changes a lot more of the feel and power level and so on than a string setup. So they're obviously less prone to changing the racket. But if they want a bit more depth, a bit more spin, a bit more comfort, they can tweak the string setup. And this is what Tsitsipas is doing right now. I don't think he has done anything to his racket setup. So that's it about Tsitsipas string. I hope you found this video useful. Please check out my other content. Please subscribe to the channel. That helps a lot. I also have a Patreon page where I publish insider info, stuff I don't publish on my other channels. Check that out, patreon.com/tennisnerd. And if you want to buy this racket, strings, whatever, and support Tennis Nerd, check out my links in the description below to Tennis Warehouse, Tennis Warehouse Only, and Tennis Warehouse Europe, where I get a small commission if you buy anything through my links at no extra cost to you. That is all. Have a nice day, and don't forget to play some tennis.